tell me about the importance of visual arts to students with learning disabilities, kinds of problems that you see, and the strategies that you use to deal with them. And also to talk about children with learning disabilities have strengths, and usually those strengths are remarkable. So I think it's important to bring that into the conversation as well.
Well, that was actually where I was going to start, because what I notice about teaching children with learning disabilities, learning challenges, is that they have enormous compensatory, if that's the right word, strategies, and many of them have compensated in visual ways or kinesthetic ways to deal with their learning challenges if they're dealing with, like reading and writing, language, and the visual arts specifically, all the arts, I think, are really just a wonderful way for students who are struggling to find that there's another language available for them. If they're struggling with, the written language or academics or even social emotional issues, visual arts is really just another language. It's a visual language. And when they understand that there's another language out there for them to express themselves and show their intelligence, it's like a really powerful thing for them. And they tend to often come to Norman Howard with some years of struggle, and that erodes their self-confidence, their self-esteem. Not all of them, but many of them have, kind of struggle with self-confidence. And developing, helping them see where their strengths already are is just a very powerful thing for them. Once they see, they may not have like the drawing skills, which most people say, I can't do art. I'm not an artist because I don't know how to draw realistically. Once they understand that is not what art is really all about, that's a skill that they can improve upon, and many of the technical things are skills that they can improve upon, and that it's more about being able to express ideas, thoughts, and feelings in a visual way, which they all have. Once they understand that, and then they learn the techniques, they learn the language, they learn the strategies, then they develop that confidence, and they can apply it to any area of their life, and to develop those skills, those are tools and strategies that they can use in other areas of their life as well. A lot of the way that I teach, and a lot of teachers of special needs kids teach, is using scaffolding and explicit instruction.
What is scaffolding?
Scaffolding, these are kind of just best practices that you teach in the general ed population, but it's more intensive, I think, with kids with special needs. And that is providing them with lots of direct instruction, demonstrations. So demonstrating tutorials. So initially it's demonstrating for them, and then demonstrating with them. So it's I do, we do, you do, basically. That's scaffolding. So
okay. So scaffolding is I'm going to show you how we do this, like say work the pottery wheel. And then you show them, and maybe a couple of times, or maybe you put some clay on there and make something, and then say, now let's do it together, and you do part of it and I'll do part of it, and so then you start that. I expect you have to do that more than once.
Well, and even breaking it down even more, it may be, let me inspire you by showing you an initial, like, amazing throwing a pot on a pottery wheel just to get you to see how fabulous this is. Okay, now you're on this thing. Okay, now I'm going to show you the poster step by step, and I'm going to have you act it out without any clay with me. So we pantomime it first.
Oh, okay.
And we break it down a lot. And then I give you a little clay, and then we do it together. You do it on the wheel, I do it on the wheel, and we talk about it as we do it. What step are you at? Are you doing the centering part, or are you just doing the part where you're pulling it up and coning it? You know, that kind of thing. Then after we've done it together, so first it's the big demo. Second, it's the kind of pantomime without the clay. Third, it's the doing it together. Fourth, it's them doing it on their own with me right next to them, still talking with them. And then they fly solo fifth, say.
So that is the scaffolding process across the artistic disciplines, like you're talking about pottery.
Yes, and even and with color mixing with, say, acrylic paints, or doing a number of different watercolor techniques, or the linoleum printing process for sure. Some of these processes are multi-step, and they take quite a bit of thinking beyond the first step. You have to be thinking of two things at the same time. Reduction printmaking, it's very complicated, and that's maybe scaffolded over and over. Maybe by the time they're in 10th grade, they can do reduction printmaking on their own. But 8th, 9th grade, they still are. I'm doing it with them and overseeing that scaffolding. So sometimes the scaffolding takes years.
Oh, okay.
All right. There's direct instruction and the use of these very intensive, teacher-led instruction with techniques, and then there's a tremendous amount of personal freedom, which is what they are going to make and what material they're going to use and what they want to say. So that between the two of those things, they need to have like a meaningful connection, a personal connection to their art, and then the training that goes with it.
So a student could come in and think to themselves, I have a dream. I've always wanted to be able to make or do thus and such. And maybe you draw that out. How would you draw that out? How would you find out? A student comes in, say they're new to the school. I don't know whether, 10 may be different than 15. But they come in with a whole set in their head, and a lot of it is negative. So now they're coming into your art class. How do you start to draw out what their dreams are, or what excites them about art?
Well, there's lots of different ways of doing it, and it takes finding out what works for each individual child. But sometimes we start out just by doing some drawing exercises and talking about creativity and if I'm taking someone from the first year they're there, I like to give them lots of I like to kind of flood them with information visually. So give them lots of time looking at different images, what different artists have done. If they say they want to, it depends on whether they want to express an experience, a feeling, or they want to build a clay house. I've had kids come in visiting and they just want to build like a clay slab house. That's what they've wanted to do, make an abode of some kind. Then I can, try to talk to them about where they got that inspiration, what was going on, is it from something in their past? Is it a memory?
There's
is
a story.
Is it a dream? Yeah, and a lot of it is about, it's narrative a lot of the time, and connecting so that they know, connecting them to their personal narratives is really important to a lot of kids. But that might not be important to all kids. Some kids don't want to go in. Some kids want to just keep it up about technique and just playing with materials, and I kind of meet them where they are.
So as we're talking, I'm remembering going back to that big Apple TV screen connected to your Apple computer, And I'm thinking, if some kid comes into the classroom for the first time and you start throwing up these magnificent images on there, I mean, what kind of images do we're... Yeah.
No, I don't tend to, like, kids will, if you show children and teenagers adult art, a lot of times they will immediately start comparing themselves and feel like they can't do anything nearly as good as that. So I guess I didn't mean that, like, I flood them with adult art.
No, that was my term.
Oh, okay. But because my classes are small, I can talk to them one-on-one and find out where they are and what they're interested in. And so what was the question about the Apple TV?
I was just, I guess the bottom line is, how do you use that great big Apple TV?
Well, I might use it for, if they're throwing, I'll show them pottery, like throwing videos on the Apple TV. If we're talking about, so maybe they're having a hard time with generating some ideas, and I'll throw out a theme for them, because sometimes having structure also is helpful. So I'll say, well, it is Halloween. Why don't we think about the theme of fear? Like, let's talk about like how different artists might portray or express fear in their art. Like, here's some ceramic artists and they've done it this way. Here's some painters and they've used the elements of like color and contrast and movement. Look at how they use that. And we talk about those. Vocabulary is also kind of scaffolded too. We build the language for them that way. But so they can see how different artists, and student artists too, there's lots of websites of other students that I can show them how other kids are doing it, how other kids express things. And I talk to them about how it is important to expose yourself to lots of other art, and it's not stealing to be inspired by it, by each other. It's important to see what other people are doing, and that's how we communicate with each other. And you can be inspired by someone else's art, then you take it and you build on that and you develop your own spin on that. And because they think they have to work in a vacuum a lot of times, that they have to come up with their own idea and it's got to be completely original and that kind of thing. And that can be real limiting to them. So
yes, that could be real limiting to anybody, especially when you have we have writer's cramp, where you just can't write. And I expect the same thing would happen with any of the arts, where your mind just won't go there.
Right. And there's lots of reasons why that can happen. It can be that there's too much freedom, or there's too little freedom, or there's physical things, you're exhausted or whatever. But so I tend to try lots of different things to help them generate their ideas. And then my goal is for them to trust themselves, trust their ideas, because a lot of times that's a real problem. Being able to trust that they'll come up with an idea, trust the process, and be aware of their process. Trust that they'll come up with an idea. Trust the times when they're not liking their art, that they'll get through it, keep working through it. And trust the times they don't know where they're going with their art, and that trusting that the time of ambiguity is important. Being in a place where you don't know what you're doing, that's okay. You can still continue with it. You don't have to know all the time what you're doing. Let it lead you. So some of it is kind of a, I don't know, it's like esoteric kind of, or not pragmatic. Discussions with them, some of it is it's, I don't know the word for it.
Well, when you're with any creative thing, I think there's a gestation period, and so you have an idea, and then you start to work on it, and you go through between that and the finish line. There's a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of ahas, and a lot of I can't do this, and all of those things are all part of the process. And I like to think of it as, when it's finally finished, it's like your baby. It's like your child. It's really yours. Your essence.
It's so true. So true.
Yes, And tell me about kids who have actually gone through that entire process and can look back on it and see it as a process and recognize that it's just a gestation period, and then how they feel about their final product.
Oh, well, I think, what I've noticed is enormous pride and, a feeling of mastery that they can achieve when they go through the difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
They are really happy to share it with other students, and that they become very helpful in the class when they get to the point where, and it doesn't really matter what their art looks like, but when they get to the point where they understand their own process, mm-hmm. and they're willing and they trust it, mm-hmm. and they trust those ups and downs, they are like co-teachers, because the other students will really listen to them, mm-hmm. and that's really I feel such joy when I hear the collaboration and the peer teaching and the encouragement that they give each other, and how they own it for themselves, and that I know that they're going to take that into other realms of their life, mm-hmm. and that's just a wonderful thing.
So one of the things that they get out of it is, I really hate the term self-esteem, but mm-hmm. they understand that they do have value, mm-hmm. and when they master something, I can do this, I have a talent and mm-hmm. a skill that
right.
I can exercise and create something with.
Absolutely, and they can make a career of it too. I mean, there's so many careers in the arts, but
yes.
But I mean that feeling of being good at something is so powerful.
It is empowering because it gives them the confidence mm-hmm. to stand tall mm-hmm. and walk straight,
yeah.
and just move forward. I can do this.
Absolutely, it really does.
Do this.
It does. It's very true.
So tell me about the difference between kids who come in when they're 10 and kids who come in when they're 15 or 16, because for some of them art may be like, I don't know, maybe they're used to coloring books. I don't know what it's like today because I'm too far removed from that age group.
Well, many of them don't have a lot of experience with visual arts when they come in.
Mm-hmm.
They may have had it until third grade, and then a lot of them will say, well, I had technology, I didn't have art. So that's heartbreaking to me, because I feel like they really benefit from having visual arts up until they can make the choice, but while they're still using that as one of their first languages, as children do, I think they should still have it in school. And so they'll come and they won't feel like that art is theirs to use. They often will feel like, because they don't have that eye-hand coordination developed, because they haven't been drawing for a while, it's not their class.
Or maybe all they do is stick figures or the equivalent, and so mm-hmm. they say, well, art, I don't know how to do art.
Right. And they're not interested in something that they don't feel like they can do, and they're not interested in trying. But we do a lot of kind of fun exercises to help them build some of their drawing skills, and then I try to find the materials that really inspire them. And usually there's 2 or 3 things that they can connect to. A lot of times it's printmaking, real kinesthetic things, carving into the linoleum and printing, and it's all really hands-on, juicy stuff to do. Clay, almost everyone loves to do clay, unless there's a sensory issue that is involved, and then they do other things.
So in your classroom, then there are many mediums.
Mm-hmm.
So we have clay, and we have tile printing,
mm-hmm.
and
we have drawing, painting, copper embossing, assemblage. I like to do a lot of recycled material,
mm-hmm.
sculpture, cardboard sculpture. What else? We have pastel, we've been painting murals around the school off and on. Yeah, I mean, you name it, it's a studio, so there's just plethora of different art materials to use. And a lot of times they don't know what's out there, so they don't know what they don't like and what they do like, and so then they get a smattering of the different things to try, and then as the time goes on, they tend to identify the material that they like to use, and they go deeper, and they'll spend more time, and they'll be more inclined to be trying to communicate something, idea or feeling.
Yeah. So as we're talking, I'm getting the sense that there's really a meta lesson that the kids are learning, and actually they're kind of incorporating into themselves, and that is the idea that learning isn't just about learning skills like how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, read, write, facts, learning facts of history and so forth. That art has a value that is entirely different than all those other subjects. And the value of it is it allows students to go within themselves and to find out that there's more to them than meets the eye, that they can actually create something out of nothing, so to speak, that they can have an idea and give it form. And that is enormously powerful, because what they find out is they have depth. And that is not something they learn from the other language, from the other subjects. And finding out that you have depth can lead to a lot of other things, particularly in terms of human relationships. Because, well, I think you can see, you probably know that, I mean, you're an art teacher, so you get that.
But that's really well put. And students will say that they take the class in order to find out what they're thinking. A lot of times they'll have these, they'll be in a flow state, and they talk about that, where they're just sort of going deep, but then they kind of uncover some of the things that they're working on within themselves. They didn't really know they were thinking about those things. They didn't really know that they were having those feelings. So that they kind of process things that are going on, and they also talk to each other and have really interesting connections and discussions while they're working on art as kind of a third party. And so it has so many benefits. I mean, it really...
Yeah, so it's yes, it's a wonderful way to explore themselves, explore the world, and explore each other. You know, I don't think listening to you has made me realize just how enormously important art is. It's not something that's frivolous. It shouldn't be the first thing that is gotten rid of.
No.
Because in terms of the finding their own personal growth, their strength as a person, it grounds them in themselves and in what they can do. There's just all kinds of possibilities with art that, I mean, you've really helped me to open my eyes to see, because I can feel it as you're talking. Yeah.
It's a wonderful avenue for them, just for like self-awareness. And one thing I didn't mention is that one of the things that we work on is the reflection piece, and throughout the process, you know, reflecting and discussing, or usually discussing, not writing, about their feelings and their process, so that they're aware of it, and then reflecting at the end, and reflecting through artist statements and sharing with each other, and learning how to critique in a positive way, and how to accept positive and constructive criticism and communicate with each other that way is really important with like communication with each other too.
Mm-hmm.
But the self-awareness piece is a really big one that I think that they take away from with the arts especially.
Yeah, I'm thinking that, you know, if the kid is throwing something on the wheel, and the idea was something that they remember, maybe about their grandmother or their great aunt or something, and they're trying to create something that reminds them of that piece that they loved or that happy moment or something.
Yeah. A lot of kids like to make things to give other people. So yeah, I mean they're doing a lot of things at the same time, I think, when they're in the class.
Think about if a child is making something for a parent or a grandparent or something. Think about the kind of wonderful, loving feelings they're having as they do it.
Right.
And the kind of pride, and isn't this going to be fun? And I'm going to
and I get to be a
surprise,
giver.
Yeah, and that's a
big one.
There's still another benefit that comes from art. So art is really extremely important.
Indeed.
So I think we've about covered that. Do you have a class now?
I do.
Okay, you must go.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, and you know, I'd be really interested in finding out what you do in St. Lucia, and if you need any volunteers, let me know.
Oh, well, just let me know what you'd like to volunteer and when, and we'll work on it.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.